firstly, if the person gets the question wrong, does the advertiser still pay because they're still engaged?
No, they don't. They only pay if they get it right. Yeah.
Do they still get to read the article?
Sorry?
Do they still get to read the article if they get
Well,
it
if
wrong?
they get it wrong, it'll just say, it'll give you a hint.
Oh,
It'll
okay.
be like, and it'll say, try again.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's like, the questions are meant to be pretty obvious, so it's like, I don't know, 5% people get it wrong. Yeah, it's not really a test, if you know.
And then what publishers do you work with? So I feel like I've seen either things similar or maybe seen this myself, but I can't remember which.
Yeah, I mean, we work with now quite a lot of the major publishers. So let's say on the news front, we work with the Mirror Group or Reach Group on all their titles. We work with the Independent Group. We're about to sign the Mail Online. We've been doing tests with them. And then we work with lots of regionals, so like Johnston Press and Archant. And on the magazine side, we pretty much work with almost all of them. So Hearst, Bauer, Condé Nast, Time Inc., although we don't know, they've just got kind of OPI Media, they got acquired by Future, so that's slightly up in limbo. But then Haymarket, Immediate Media, it's kind of on the magazine side, it's pretty much, almost all, apart from Future and Dennis, pretty much everybody else.
Great. So. And then just last question on the back
sure.
of that. So I was inspired by your grad tan example. How does it work with like media buying? So would you say work with our media agency?
Absolutely, yeah. We although we have really direct relationships with brands, like this I would call it a relationship, but all media spend always goes through an agency. So we would work. We already work with Cara, for example. So yeah. So sorry, I think you. Sorry.
So I think your product seems to have quite a focus on turning what could be otherwise quite dry sort of product messages that, as you said, don't really work in the display space and are just noise into something sort of engage-worthy. There's obviously a completely separate school of thought around display advertising now that says to use it as basically a showcase for quality content marketing, or to even go a step further and bring in real-time data to make it relevant to the content the publisher has. So we've run a campaign here where we've built in things like temperature data into sun advertising. I guess what makes you feel that long-term your product and that approach will have the edge over just sort of moving from creating dry advertising to something that's of more value to the viewer?
Well, at the end of the day, anything from a technical point of view, anything that you can do in a standard banner, you can do this. So we've done things where the free wall itself is dynamic. We've got sort of betting data coming in and things like that, and we could even have the odds changing, for example. But fundamentally, again, as I say, it's like essentially so when we sort of realized that essentially this was a conversation, and that's where we feel like when you think about it in that way, that's where the true value is. Most digital advertising is just sort of one way, right? You're sort of blaring out at the user a message, whereas this one, we feel actually is more powerful because more often than not, when you want to have a conversation, how do you start a conversation? You say, hi, how are you? You ask a question, you engage, and you get a response, and then you respond back. And we always encourage marketers to say, well, look, think of this as your opportunity to have a very small conversation. Now, we can do lots of fun things technically to make it dynamic, to make it relevant to the content. But think of it as if you had the opportunity to have a very short conversation with a consumer, what would you want to say to them? What would you want to ask them? Or what do you know? So we think as long as there's a place in society for having a conversation, we'll be okay. You see what I mean? Yeah, sure.
How easily can you link specific ads to very particular article content?
Very specifically. So we are plugged into the whole sort of, let's say, ad tech stack. So we can do keyword targeting, things like that. So you can say, well, here are the keywords we would like to target against, and we can then make sure that the free will only applies to those articles that have those keywords in the article, or from an assessment point of view using a natural language processing. So Grapeshot is a vendor that we work with who do a lot of that. In fact, I would say our strength is more on the contextual map. Freewall works a lot better. You get much better engagement rates when you get a much better contextual fit, and actually that's where we've invested more of our technology is to get the contextual fit right, as opposed to just sort of following people anywhere around the web. Because we work with essentially premium publishers, what we can't do is go, oh, we've identified the user and now we'll just follow them all around the internet, regardless of what site they are. Yes, we work with a large group of publishers, but there's still, 20 odd publishers. So it's much, we can obviously locate that person when they approach one of those publishers, but when you get the contextual fit right, it works just so much better.
How does it split between gender? Do women engage more or men, or is it split between?
We've looked at this, and we've looked at different sort of types of content, but it's actually the by far the single biggest factor for driving engagement is the article. So we'll get a good article will get near 100% engagement rate. A bad one will get as low as 5%. In fact, when we now optimize it, we tend to have I think typically threshold of 10. If we are beginning to assess that the engagement rate is going to be less than 10, we won't even bother showing the free world. Be like, why interrupt the user when the likelihood is all we're going to do is annoy them because for something they probably don't even want to read, kind of thing.
And is there an area like sport or beauty, or is there a topic where you see higher engagement, or is it just the quality of the article in the context of it?
What we've noticed is that when the article has a high level of information content, let's say, it tends to get a high level of engagement. Essentially saying, look, because it goes in sort of, let's say, sort of below the fold, if you will, you get the 2 paragraphs and a bit, and then it's there. If the article is something where the majority of the information is actually contained in the top 2 paragraphs, so let's say it's a headline about, I don't know, some scandal or something, I don't know, and you don't really interested in all the gory details, and you're probably not going to engage. But if it's, say, a financial article where it is like in depth talking about, what the implications of Brexit are, whatever, then and there's a lot of sort of valuable information below later on in the article, then you'll get very high engagement rates, regardless of it's sport or finance. But sport and finance tend to get the more engagement rate. And you might say, well, that's therefore men, because they tend to be focused more on the sports and finance section. But I actually think it's, when we've only done one study to do see it like gender, and that's been basically inclusive. It's pretty much the same if you sort of made the articles all the same, essentially.
And then, sorry,
Yeah.
question 5. Is there then, so obviously brand awareness or message awareness of the campaign increases, but then is there any evidence then to say that that person goes on to buy it and that they have a positive feeling about the brand because they're interrupted? Is there any, or is there any cases where they know about it but they're annoyed with it?
The thing is, we haven't been doing campaigns that are so big that you can measure an econometric actual, where we ran a free world campaign and then we saw like sales in stores go up. But what we've been able to do is do brand recall studies, uplift studies, and measure that there was a positive increase in the sentiment, that people understood the message better. So, in fact, Sky is one of our biggest advertisers. They've constantly done this because they spend slightly larger amounts, and they always ask for some sort of brand uplift study, sort of tagged on for free as part of spending a larger amount of budget. And every time we do this, it's always delivered sort of positive upticks in the metrics they're looking for. We've so far been used at I'd say a high level, more for branding than for direct response, because unfortunately, because of the way the ecosystem's set up, you can buy banners really dirt cheap. If all you're looking to do is get someone to click through and then transact, you can buy banners so cheaply that they will look more successful. There's a really interesting article recently in the Correspondent was talking about is your advertising genuinely driving the traffic, or is the advertising just picking up the attribution of people who had already been informed, who were just going to go and purchase anyway? And that's actually apparently now one of the things that's quite hard to measure, because a lot of advertisers or agencies will say, look, we'll attribute based on last click or last view, right? So if someone does a purchase, because we've dropped a cookie in the past, every time an ad was served, we'll give credit to the tech company, I think, who last showed the ad. Now, if you're buying ads really cheap and you're just spraying them all around, you massively increase the chance that someone saw your ad, even if they never noticed it, from a tech attribution point of view before they went on to purchase the product. So, and then they will claim the attribution even if the ad actually had zero impact on actually driving them to make the purchase. So that's an area where we kind of, to be honest, constantly have a bit of a battle, because we're like, look, if you're just going to try and say, did seeing a free wall then within a 1 week period drive someone to make a purchase, that's really hard for us to compete against when you've got a Criteo who are, probably in that space of time, managed to sneak in a banner ad to that person and will claim that they got the sale rather than a free wall. So we've been more successful in this sort of at the more top of the funnel saying, and that's where you do the comparative studies. You go, we ran the banner campaign. Was there any brand uplift? And it's like, not much. You run our campaign, and there's much more of a brand uplift.
Thank you. Just one more from me. In terms of who sees the ad, say you've got an article that might be relevant, again using your graduate tan example, it might be something about like summer holiday or something like that. But we want to target older consumers. Would everybody who reads that article that has the right keywords see the ad, or would you only serve it to people within the target group?
Yes, so essentially we've got two types of targeting, contextual and audience targeting, and the advertiser or the agency can sort of say they want to do one or the other or both. So if the campaign was being run had both aspects of targeting, the contextual and the audience, then let's say one brand was saying only context, then every time that article or thing, their ad would show up. But if another brand was running, say, context and audience, then, and let's say they had different creatives for different types of audience, then for that thing, they might see the audience or not. So if let's say you had a older thing, but there was a younger lady came to see that article, and there was they went in the audience segment, she wouldn't be shown that ad. Only the older lady would be shown the ad.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Got time for one more question, if anyone has. Adam?
How does it work on mobile or in-app? Because all the ones there look like desktop.
Yes, so actually, interesting enough, it works better on mobile because it's sort of, there's less clutter, if you will. It was designed to be more of actually mobile first, really, because when we designed it. It also works in-app. In-app, we don't have the same level where you can always sort of dismiss it, if you will, because by default you always get the cross because it's served as an interstitial.
Yeah.
But a lot of apps now will have a bit of a time delay before that cross turns up. So what we find is people still answer the question, because the moment you answer the question, it goes away and you can carry on. So it works in app, but our best engagement rates and our best sort of performance from an advertiser point of view is always mobile in web, if you will.